Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the bridge. We're glad you're with us today. We are on episode 123, and we have two wonderful guests with us today. I have a guest and a guest co-host. So, welcome, Jodie Charlop. Did I say it right?
You
Is
did.
our, is our guest, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself in a minute. And our guest co-host is Ann Jones. Hi, Ann. Good to see you.
Good to be with you.
Ann's on the East Coast too, so I guess I'm the only Westie.
I'm not in the
Well,
East
you're not
Coast. I'm Midlands, Indiana.
Oh, that no nonsense Midwestern appeal.
Western.
But you are in Eastern time. I guess that's why I always.
I am on Eastern time.
I'm always worried about the time zone. So, anyway, Ann, you've got a great quote for us today. What is it?
Like a 10-speed bicycle, many of us have gears we do not use.
Oh,
By Charles Schultz.
nice.
Okay, that's a good one. I can just imagine the picture that went with that, huh? With the cartoon. And Jodie, welcome to the bridge. We're so glad you're with us. Your job right now is to just kind of introduce yourself, and we'll kind of go from there.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Ann. I'm Jodie Charlop. I'm executive coach and managing partner of a firm here in Atlanta, home base, albeit our clients are global, called Acceleration Partners. I have been an executive coach for 22 years. Atlanta's our home base. I'm here with my husband and soon to be graduating from college, 22-year-old awesome son, and our two little dogs, Jenny and Calvin, in our family here in Atlanta. From a professional standpoint, I'm an executive coach. I've been a leadership coach for, September will be my 22nd year. And, spent a whole lot of time on the corporate side of things for almost 20 years, was very, very blessed to have a fantastic coach that helped me become a leader, and worked with that coach through my own growth and movement from a mid-level management role to a C-suite role through lots of getting my PhD in real world leadership, mergers and acquisitions, spent a little time in Silicon Valley during the tech bust. And it was during that time that I realized that performance is ultimately human, right? And no matter how we shake it, what kind of business plan we got, where technology is going with all this crazy AI and everything that's happening, it doesn't work if the humans don't work. And so for me, I mid-career went back and got my master's in counseling to understand human behavior and really understand how to help people be more successful, how to help businesses thrive, because I had seen so much pain from my very first job, watching a company go out of business from the inside out, my very first big company, great company, tens of thousands of people gone overnight, right? And so you learn that change is inevitable. And over time, I became immensely curious about how to help people thrive and survive and change. And been fortunate enough that clients have trusted me enough to do it for 22 years. Have a nice business partner and a whole host of excellent brain trust partners. And I love the coaching and leadership community because we're very open source and continue to do great work with clients all across the globe.
Awesome. So what was what caused you or inspired you to take the leap from corporate into your own business?
Steve Jobs had a quote, good, bad, or different if you like Steve Jobs as a human or an innovator, but he says, on matters of the heart, can't plan too much because on matters of the heart, when you know it, it happens, right? I didn't know what this coaching thing was about. I just knew I was having some challenges with a very difficult leader at the time. I had some great relationships and great clients, and somebody said, you should try this coaching thing. I didn't have any idea what it was about. I just knew I was stuck and really needed some help. And that turned into a 10-year relationship, both for me and using coaching in my with my teams. And so I got an introduction to coaching based on great coaching. And really what I say is it was great because it helped me grow my career, it helped me grow as a leader, it helped me advance exponentially from in a communication firm, leading to actually being in my first C-suite role, working with executives, doing mergers and acquisitions, dealing with crazy human chaos. And, but it was during that time that I began to really understand that I wanted the tools and the knowledge to help businesses be more successful. And while business is great and you have all the tools for marketing and communication, it was the human behavior piece that was really the piece. And so a great coach inspired me to be great. And I always say, not only as a professional, a leader, coaching made me a better human being, right? A better mom, a better everything. So I'm starting a new MBA cohort. I do some coaching for Emory University every year with evening MBAs. And somebody said, what if you don't like coaching and you don't want to coach? And I'm like, well, I think coaching and leadership are so intrinsically tied. You can't help but be a coach at some point. But I was inspired to codify it. And I remember I was sitting in Silicon Valley and overlooking San Francisco Bay. And my coach said, what do you really want to be when you grow up? And I said, I really want to help this human equation advance. And he said, what are you waiting for? So came back, got my master's in counseling, and hung my shingle as a coach in 2004. So
awesome. So Anne, have you got a question or a comment?
Oh, I have a very small nonprofit. I was a stay-at-home mom. So this corporate stuff, I did work a couple jobs. I worked for the Presbyterian Foundation in Louisville. And I do know that, that human equation and having good bosses versus bad bosses and they need coaching as much as we need coaching.
Yeah, I think you learn more from a bad boss than you do a good one, for sure.
Yeah,
it's like parenting, I guess. You learn what you don't want to be, or what you do want to be. So,
I told the gal just the other day. I said, because she's in a job, she needed a job for the money, which we all need that. And I told her, I said, you need 2 notebooks. One for what's going well and what you want to aspire to. And the other one is for what I'm never going to do. And that's as good of a lesson as anything. So Jodie, I'm curious because I have 3 little things popping up in me about you. And number one, I'm thinking the center of your work and inspiration has to do with human behavior and connection.
Yeah.
And so tell me about Jodie when you were a little girl, because I think you were probably a coach back then and a behavior interventionist.
That's a funny story. I will tell you, and people are always surprised by that. I am a deeply introverted, analytic human, right? So whether it was nature or nurture, I grew up in a very demonstrative family. But I think, I was more the quiet type, I'd rather read a book than talk to humans. And so, what is it they say? You teach what you need to learn. And so the human experience, I was very observational. Some of it is growing up in a crazy dysfunctional family, and you learn the observation skills. So, what is a good day and a bad day. And so I think, some of it, and also just my natural personality as an observer to see patterns and trends. But I have to say, I will say, honestly, thank God for coaching, because I was a terrible leader, right? I always say I was in a meeting, I was having lunch with my business partner, and we were laughing because I was like, man, in my first 10 years, I never would have wanted to report to me, right? Because I think I didn't grow up in a home or a family that really understood healthy behaviors, right? And so for me, it was learning all the things, we learn by what we see and experience. And so while I was a pretty darn good high achiever and I could get some great business results, I had to learn the art. I had to learn the art of human connection, right? And so for me, I think that family dynamic in many ways was a little overwhelming, and maybe it had me retreat a little, but coaching really helped me get comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah. So my second observation is that because of the way you grew up and the experiences and how you had to learn to behave to keep the peace or whatever you were keeping.
Mm-hmm.
You probably at an early age you're very intuitive. And so that probably really led you into where you are today. And as a coach, I think that intuition is one of the most important skills besides curiosity that we
Oh
have
my
to
gosh,
have.
yeah.
You just need to lean into it and say it, not hold back. But I have a hunch that intuition was part of you and you learned a lot from your family.
Oh, absolutely. The wonderful part about going back mid-career and getting a master's in counseling is they make you clean your closet. I ran out of dysfunctional family members to write about, right? You really clean when you're doing double outs. It's like, I can't write about my mom, my dad, my sister, so it is really, I think, the beauty of self-exploration. I always laugh. If more CEOs went and got a master's in counseling versus an MBA, life would be a whole lot different, right? That's self-exploration and really understanding that life taught me so many things. And that intuition is very important. I think also as a woman leader coming up, you're also learning to trust your intuition, right? And, even in my class yesterday, when I was doing a panel discussion, I was saying, they said, what would be one thing that you would help make this experience great? Because we're doing a coach the coach, like our second year MBAs are actually coaching our first year MBAs on team dynamics. And I said, trusting your intuition is probably a great crossover between in that courage and confidence we have. If you feel it, somebody else feels it. And curiosity and intuition come together to use everything you have and be able to say it and put it out on the table because it's data. I always say emotions are data, right? And so if I'm feeling it or I'm experiencing it, that is something that's in the room and we want to put it there for us to explore. And that's where the juicy stuff comes in terms of what I'm experiencing, what they're experiencing, what team members are experiencing. And when we can use that, we're kind of in that third level of listening to really listen at a whole nother level. So I have to say, again, a skill that maybe I cultivated from a survival standpoint, but it also made me a good listener, observer. And also, I think through coaching, I learned to trust it and be okay that people are whole. And if it's not right, they'll tell you and it's okay. Right. But and so the intuition, I think, is it's a great part of being a good human and a good leader and just learning to trust your instinct that everything we have kind of comes through that nice emotional lens. And that spider sense you have, as they say in Spider-Man, that spidey sense you had has meaning, right? And we've been using intuition for millions and millions of years as humans to ensure we're safe, secure, and capable. So,
absolutely. Well, I know the way I learned to be bold with intuition is sometimes if you say it, they'll come against you and say, no, that's not it. And it pushes them to clarity.
Great point.
Yeah, I mean, if that's not it, then what might it be?
Right. Well, I love that because you got to start somewhere, and you're pushing out. And I think people they're not lost. They have all of their data, but sometimes you need to rub up against something. Like you said, you were saying the notebook for what you love and what you don't love. I think that's that resistance that we get, so we can it's not this, and if it's not that, what is it? And so I agree. I think having that push makes us use our thinking brain to go, no, that's not it. So what is it? And so we kind of kick in that machine of cognition that allows us to begin to clarify. I would agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So back to you used a term called the third layer of listening. And I just read an article this week about, I can't remember, it was an 80s study about somebody talking about the third layer of listening and how it connects to the vagal nerve, and which is fascinating to me. But, and I guess the dot I want to connect here is in coaching and leadership nowadays, one of the big words is presence, being there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know with the degree you got, I mean, listening is all about presence, and it's all also about energy,
Mm-hmm.
and using that energy as a leader to clear the room, basically.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a meeting, put down your phone and think about your energy, because when you walk in, it's going to infiltrate.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about what you've learned about your energy and dispelling or, causing the energy to change, because I'm sure you walk with that.
It's funny because I'm very analytic, and you learn that there is so much to learn from our, mind, body, spirit, right? That our body are jumbo computers that tell us so much if we pay attention, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so I don't think, and I talk about energy a lot, so I'm glad you brought it up. I think energy management in today's time is even more important than ever, because the world is working against us in terms of being able to listen. There's so many distractions, technology, your phone pinging, everybody's vying for your time. We have more work. The distraction quotient, I think one of the biggest challenges we have as leaders and as humans is just getting white space, think time, right? Because our brains are these amazing tools that we can use. But again, that part of our brain that needs to be quiet is being pounded on by the world. And so it's like we're standing there, and like I think of it like I don't know if you ever saw the old Twister movie where, cows are flying at you and trucks coming. I think the world's kind of coming at us. And we have to kind of make the system will absorb us, right? Just right into the vortex of noise, right? And we have to work real hard to stay outside the system so we can be more present. And that actually is a huge skill in today's time, because there is so much noise in the world. And I say one of the greatest skills that you have is kind of being able to be of this world and not in it, in the sense that the system will pull you in. And so having that discernment to listen, to be present, it's one of the hardest skills. You think being present, everybody's like, oh, I could be present. I'm like, no, not really, because there's a million things on our mind, and like supercomputers, and there's things coming at you vying for your time. And in today's time, we have so much overload, cognitive overload, emotional overload, and practical overload, right? Cognitive, our brains are tired. We just have too much to do, and technology and code switching and life, family, 24/7, all these things that were supposed to make our lives better has actually made our lives more on. We have the emotional piece of stress and family and the multi-dimensions we don't turn off and on. At least we used to go to an office and go home. Now we're on 24/7. And so it's creating an unusual lack of boundaries and kind of never being able to shut it off, right? And to some serious, and then we just have practical math, right? There's only so many things we can do. We have the same 24 hours every day. And so it's like, how does that person get so much done in so little time? I'm like, well, it's energy management and kind of really making hard, discerning decisions of where you're going to spend your time, because there's something out there trying to steal. And so I think it's self-empowering to figure out, how you're kind of managing the energy of what's coming at you and doing a little emotional and cognitive Tai Chi to make sure you're putting it in the right place. And I think that in itself is a practice, a life practice, and an emotional regulation practice.
Why it's so important to have a coach, because somebody on the exterior who can notice things that you're not noticing yourself. So I've got kind of, I guess it's a personal question, a personal self-management question.
Sure.
Being a natural introvert, how has that worked for you? How do you manage getting your energy from your introversion, being by yourself? Is it easier for you to find that quiet time, or do you know what I mean? Because introverts are so different than extroverts when it comes to managing energy.
It's a great question. I think I've gotten better at that. I think, again, it's a practice, right? And for me, I think it's learning to make sure you're putting the time in you need. One of the things I always talk about is know when you get on tilt, right? And when you are, when you've kind of hit the wall or you have different things. And so I think it's like continuously practicing how to get the right mix. Like my mix is very different from your, even if we're both introverts, right? Like our mixes are very different. We have our own unique recipe. So I always tell clients, start with your own operating system. Like we read books and mentor books to try and be like everybody else, but they're only mentor guides because you have your own operating system, right? And so for me, it's making sure I have enough solitude and quiet time, and even down to how I spend my day when when I take meetings, like really spending time to know. I think as a leader, a business owner, and just a human in general, you've got to know what you need to thrive, right? And there are always going to be stretch periods where, you're going to feel like you got more than you can handle or you're super busy. But we have taken stretch way beyond, and particularly for women who over responsibility for a lot of things. I think for women leaders, we're carrying a lot more, whether by conscious choice or we just need to unlearn this world, which has taught us that that's just our lot in life to bear. Right. So for me, I think it's getting better. My husband has invested in a business that has him out of the home at night. And I laughed because he asked me a few weeks ago, he said, do you mind, I'm getting this business launched and there's some evening things that he's doing. And I said, no, we've been married, a long time. I'm mathematically poor on thinking about it, like 29 years, I think. He's a CPA. I married him because he's good at math and I'm not. I'm much more of the verbal kind. But I laughed and I thought, no, that extra solitude at night is actually quite helpful because I can read. And it's not that it wasn't helpful, but for me, that little extra solitude right now is such a joy because it's my quiet time and my think time. And, my son's away at college and that has its own sadness of empty nest syndrome. But getting those little recharge times, if we can't get it, we got to create it, right? Yeah. We plan our vacations to ensure we take them, because if we don't, it just won't happen, right? This life is too busy. So we have become more conscious of our energy as humans, energy as an aging professional, energy and trying to give to home, to family, to relationships, to work. I think it's a constant state of, kind of moving the pieces around and just getting better and better at it.
Sue knows my story. I'm a widow of 14 years. I had 6 kids. I've raised 5 of my own and then a grandchild that I raised. This is the first time I just moved into my own place, and it's the first time I've ever lived on my own in my life.
Oh, wow.
And I always thought of myself, my whole family, I'm from a family of 5 girls, all extroverts, just blah, 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 blah. And when I took the Myers-Briggs thing, I was kind of right on the borderline between introvert and extrovert. I remember my mom telling me when I was in grade school, the teachers would say, she's great with other people, she's fine being on her own. And I'm really taking this time. I'm 66 and I'm taking the time to just enjoy the peace. I have a little pond out back, and I don't have anybody demanding anything of me, and it's really nice.
Kind of nice, yeah.
I created a little, I called it a book nook, but I think it's going to be my prayer chair. It's like a chaise kind of thing, and I have bookcase right there, but I have always journaled, and I lived 3 minutes from my church, so I would go to this little chapel and journal, and I can journal in my own little
you have your own solitude,
on my deck or wherever. And I'm just finding new ways to find that peace. And I'm really enjoying it because
that's wonderful.
I had a pretty rocky relationship with the granddaughter that was living with me. She just graduated. She was fortunate enough. She just bought a condo herself. So she's off on her
She's
own. You know,
off
she's
and running. You've done your
starting
job.
school
Bye,
and
baby.
working a lot, and I'm not hearing from her much. But you know, that's okay because she was pretty verbally abusive and just a
Sorry to
nasty,
hear that.
nasty. I mean, she got a
Maturing, yeah.
diagnosis. She got a diagnosis of bipolar at the end of the
Oh my
whole
God.
school year after I had been through, 8 or 9 months of hell, trying to get along with
That's
this
tough.
person. But I had her for 6.5 years and she lost both parents. So she's got her trauma and things to deal with, but it's really nice to be able to be retired again. I mean, I still have my little nonprofit that I do, and that's a purpose that I have.
Yeah, she writes books too.
Oh wow, that's great.
In her journal.
The solitude piece, I think, is learning to be with ourselves. I think it's, and I think because I coach. I was saying, as I'm looking, and I'm currently writing a book that'll be out Q1. Actually, the book's done. We're working on case studies right now. It's called Girl, Put Your Hand Down. And it's really this place that as women, we are not capable. We don't need more courage. I mean, we don't need more confidence. We don't need more. We need less, right? And it's really how we've been sold a bill of goods about being super women and being on and being the caretaker. And so we've got all of this going on. And so finding that place of self, I think, is a journey. And I was really sad as I was working on the research. I've been doing, mostly I coach, 5-to-1 men. If I'm coaching in corporate America, I coach 5-to-1 men in the executive suite because they're 5-to-1 men in the executive suite. But my rising leaders that I'm hoping will take their chair is more 5-to-1 women kind of rising. And so I get to see this different kind of conversation. But that journey to self, and I'm glad that we do find it because it is and peace is a very powerful word, right?
Mm-hmm.
That sense of self, solitude. And I remember doing my very, very first women's course. And I remember a woman talking about like when her son was in high school and he said, Mom, I'm cooking dinner for you tonight. And she was like, oh, that's really nice. And he said, and it just stuck with me like 20 some odd years later, it stuck with me. She's like, he said, what's your favorite food? And she's like, I don't even know anymore. I've been putting a meal on the table for my kids, nurturing a family, doing all this. I never had time for me. Yeah. And I think
Absolutely.
I think that's, getting that sense of self. And somebody asked me one time, how did I I've been married 29 years and my husband is a strong, fiery, we have very opposing forces. And I laugh, thank God I got my master's in counseling because, assessments really helped us understand our unique preferences that helped us kind of figure that out. But I do think it's a sense of I think you got to be a strong self before you can be a strong partner. And, we work independently and together, right? And so it is that sense of self that I can get what I need, you can get what you need, but we both get something we need. And a lot of women are waking up and, badass acts after 50. People are like, the good news is there's very few competitive advantages we have as a women, except when we age and mature, we were expected to not have a traditional path, right? Because of kids and other things. So there's a lot of women waking up to badass careers and badass second acts and third acts. And women are quite resourceful in that. And a lot of it comes down to, finding self because we have been distracted by family, by work, by the multiple roles we have. And so that journey to self is a wonderful place and glad you're finding it. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to get my energy from, managing my household and being around everybody. And it's just nice to be able to take a different approach and, do what I want to have, what I want to have for dinner. I've actually been cooking for myself where when my granddaughter was at home, she wouldn't eat what I would make. So I would try to think of things she would want.
Right. Serving. I'm being of service to you versus,
And now I'm just like, I felt like a pizza last night. So I made a pizza, out of dough and the whole 9 yards.
I belong to yeah, you get to eat what you want when you want. I belong to what I call it my old lady travel group because it's women who travel solo after 50. My husband and I, our love is travel. Our son is a child of the world. That is our love, is travel and learning and history and culture. And even before I met him, that was kind of always our thing. And so I belong to this group, and it's really nice. And we talk about, I'm also big on women and safety, that, there are a lot of women who are solo. Either they've woken up at 50 and decided that the relationship they stayed in for family and kids is not what they want anymore. Or, we're widowed, or we make a change, or the kids are gone. And so we're finding it. But it's really fascinating because he's bought this business. I love traveling with him. I love traveling with our family. But because he now has a business that's highly localized, whereas before we were both mobile, we could do coaching. He was an executive recruiter, and now he owns a stationary business, restaurant industry. And so he can't pick up, it's not the kind of business you can run on the computer or phone. But it's been really nice because now I'm traveling solo a little bit. I'll go and then he'll come and join me for what periods he can. And it's been quite remarkable because, again, I eat what I want. I do what I want. I operate like I want. If I want to talk with people, you can join, a group and be social. You can meet other women. You can, there's just, it's choice, but it's that consciousness that I have that choice. It's all about me for once. And it's kind of a joyous experience. I know for me personally, it sounds like you too are finding that sense of joy and just being present with yourself.
Yeah, you can have your own agenda. That's great, and such a great topic. And I'm going to switch us over to something.
Sorry.
I have a curious question because it's something that I've noticed I think I've been noticing it for probably 6 months to a year, but it's really jumping out at me, and I'm working on some stuff around it. But leadership, we throw people into management degrees and leadership degrees, and it really isn't what leadership is anymore. Leadership has changed. I think it has. It's not that in actuality, the practice of it, but I think of the theoretical pieces of it. I think it far more encompasses, not just alignment, not just communication, not just project management stuff, but we're starting to put in deep communication, presence. I love the word presence.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to include mental health and neuroscience and all the kind of offshoots. And I'm thinking that we need a big umbrella of kind of something. I don't know. I've got a name for it now. I think right now I'm calling it coherence as a way of being. So it encompasses that me time, the quiet time, but it encompasses all the other little things that make us healthy and authentic leaders, so we can really be ourselves, not burn ourselves out, and we can teach it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so what do you notice about, of course, I mean, on LinkedIn, I'm connected to the people, emotional intelligence and all the communication pieces, but the leadership stuff too. And I'm just really noticing people talking about truth telling, bringing truth into the room, being authentic, not pretending, So I don't know, what are your observations out in the world, both of your education stuff you're doing and also in corporate?
Well, I always say I don't make the rules. Performance is human, right?
Yeah.
And the systems that our systems, our technology, it's moving faster than our brains can keep up with, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I was very blessed when I was in the communications industry. I worked with we take a lot of our leadership learning from great performers like athletes and other things. And I always say particularly if I have, people are like, oh, I work a million, I'm such a, sometimes leaders are like, I work a lot. We have a really strong hustle culture. And I'm like, great. So you're corporate amateurs. And they're like, what? I'm like, well, if you're a world-class athlete, it's mind, body, spirit, like a world-class athlete. And I've been very fortunate that I have coached some people, not as they were athletes, but as they've come back into the corporate world after very rich careers, football, basketball, tennis, people who've come back to have corporate careers. One of my clients broke the color barrier for one of the major universities. So a lot of people have learned performance through, but it is really mind, body, spirit, right? And and one of the things you learn from athletes is you want to be in the game as long as you can. It's not about winning every game; it's about longevity, right? And so it's really about learning that mind, body, spirit, everything. And now it's come back to a point where the system, it's just not sustainable, right? The way we operate and the way the world is pushing us into it. I mean, even, I had a colleague call me yesterday and he said, I would normally not ask for help, but I need a recommendation. We have too close of a relationship for me to be that person's coach. But they said, I need your help identifying somebody. I have just hit my burnout wall. Never would have thought about it in a million years. And I said, how proud you must be to raise your hand and say, this is at a point to where I can still kind of take a look at it and not work through. But, but in athlete, in the world of athletics, you get off seasons and you get training periods. And we have taken that away from, training has been squashed out from a leadership. If you do get training, you have to do it in 2 hours or less, or, now we're doing micro learning and you can get me for like 7 minutes in a video and you can keep my attention on that. Like, we are pushing the edges. And a really good colleague just wrote a book called Authentically Human, Crystal Fernando, and she's been studying brain science and other things. To be a high performer, it really is about self-care. Like all this stuff that people are like, oh, that's so woo-woo, but it's not. There's science and performance science and, things that they have known in athletics for, decades. Right. And in the world of work, and nonprofit is one of the worst offenders because they're noble and have a mission, and there is more need than they will ever feel. And they are organizational complexity. So you say you're not in corporate, but it's still organizational America. A lot of you just have volunteers that have a whole nother set of leadership principles, right? Like getting people to do things. Yeah, different agenda, different thing. It's a whole different, but it's still about managing that sense of commitment, workforce. It's still the same, whether it's just the product is a mission, not a for-profit kind of deal. But I just think this whole, leadership, we're pushing the boundaries to think we like the mechanistic model. We built our models of leadership on that traditional model of the manufacturing model. We built our school systems on stable models. We built our models on more stable world. And since 1989, the world has not been stable. And I pull that because that's when the military began to study volatility in the military and began to look at emotional intelligence and all those things that, we can't call and get, command control to tell us what to do. We've got to have more distributed teams, and people have to have authority and an agency to make decisions. It's moving too fast for us to control it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I think, we got to use all of our head, heart, hands, and feet to survive and thrive in today's world. So I think it's, in one sense, and I think COVID really helped push the envelope on that, we were in denial for a long time that it was happening. And I think it just exploded. And now the toothpaste is out of the tube. We can't get it back in, but we're still trying to figure out, like any major change, it's messy and we are not sure what to do with it yet. And we're morphing from what we were to what we are as humans. And we're still trying to figure it out. And mental health, sustainable, is because our systems, they break down, and we're trying to figure out how to lead and work and live in this kind of crazy, fast-paced world.
Right. Well, I love your analogy with sports, because in sports they practice.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
I mean, and I like the fact in your class, second year, and when I teach coaching, same thing. Second year is practice.
Mm-hmm.
You learn the premise, but where do you do that? No, you get the corporate job and they don't like what you do and they fire you. You've had no
Yeah.
practice. I mean, there's no practice there really, even in grad school. And
Yeah.
and you don't get comfortable with anything until you've
Mm.
practiced it. Good old Maslow's hierarchy that needs, safety first.
Yeah. Safety,
And
security. Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing about athletics and leadership, they bond as a team. They learn what's going on in the other people. And I think that's probably for me, that's the most important component of being a good leader. It's being able to
Mm-hmm.
read the needs of your people and see
Yeah.
what they are about, and approach it from that. If you're in touch with your own mind, soul, and body,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
you'll be able to look at other people and say, hey, I see this in you. And
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It's sports and the military, they bond because they
Yeah.
go through all this training,
Firemen.
and they
Yeah.
depend
Firemen.
on each
Yeah.
other, first
And
responder.
yeah, absolutely. The Navy SEALs is fascinating. My brother-in-law is an ex-Navy SEAL, and we talk about it. But I think that is because they speed trust first. Trust is the
Yeah.
only thing that really helps scale, right? That's why, I was fascinated when I decided to study human behavior and watching these really great businesses just fail, right? Like on paper, there should have been no reason they failed. You take one software company that's 100 million, and you put it with this new, and you think they should fit together, but they don't because of the cultural breach, right? And it is the human, us versus them mentality, and learning how to meld because we want to take a more, mechanistic, like an engineering, like a machine model, right? Like put the piece parts together and it's going to operate. And it's like, I don't make the rules. That's why I'm like coach now, coach later. Somewhere you're going to run into it because I don't make the rules. I wish the world worked that way. I'm an analytic. I'd love it to be more smooth, right? But
Right.
part of it is realizing that trust is the only thing that really scales. And in speed, that's why the trust is there, because then you have that speed of decisions. You are able to work through problems much more holistically or quicker because you're doing the work, not the bonding. And so, and a lot of times we're seeing it. And I think we're going to have a resurgence. And I've certainly see it, this AI component, and kind of equate it to what happened kind of back in the 2000s when we were doing the tech bust and kind of what's happening. Change is always happening. It's like COVID or now this magnitude of AI and speed. But I don't care how fast you want it to go. As humans, we can only change so quickly, right? And so I think we're going to, and you're seeing it now in leaders speaking about it. It's not the, there, it's the human piece of it that is the equation. And I am seeing much more because it's faster, because it's new, because it's almost kind of force fitting people to go back to the basics, because without it, they'll implode. Right. And so we're definitely seeing, we want to do it faster. We want to do it, but we're going to have to do it. What keeps us up at night is how do you speed relationships? We don't have time to, what is the old model, storm, norm, conform, perform, it's like it's like, how do you, like in an operating room or on an airplane with, when you bring a team of people who don't go together, work together, how do you bring these teams together and gel quickly when relationships do take time? And so learning and making it a practice. I mean, we have a business plan for the team, but we have a business plan for the business, but do we have a business plan for the team, right? Do we have performance metrics in terms of relationships? I don't make the rules, but 80% of it is the human interaction, right? If we want to get things done, we got to move the humans. And so do we have a framework, an operating framework to build the metrics of the humans? Do we have trust? Do we have alignment? Do we have those things? If you don't, it just drags the business. So you've got to get the human equation, right?
It can't be on paper. It has to, I mean, I use storming, forming, and norming, but when you do norms, what does having my back look like? And you talk to each person. They
Mm-hmm.
have different things to say, and then the leader has to call the bullshit.
Yeah.
When somebody rolls their eyes, when somebody goes and talks in the parking lot, you have to say, hey, you have got to confront them. It's accountability. And
Mm.
I had somebody tell me the other day, we were talking about trust, and it does take time, but when you have a leader, you
Mm-hmm.
almost have to take a leap of faith,
Mm-hmm.
and then that leader has to prove it. It has to
Mm-hmm.
be built on trustworthy actions, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what takes the time. And if you break it, it's gone.
Yeah, that is it.
So,
I always say, and trust is a funny thing. I always say trust, there's a micro element of trust and there's a macro element of trust. Some people are, I will give you trust until you lose it. I'll have a general surface trust. But trust is on a continuum, right? And
yes,
you're absolutely right. But it's really that human connection, credibility. There's some great work done out of Baylor, gosh, gazillion years ago. Credibility. I trust that you have some knowledge that's going to be helpful, and I'm talking about trust in a business setting. Credibility. That what you're sharing with me is credible, knowledgeable. Like we have an exchange of good knowledge. Reliability. I can count on you, right? And I don't. You don't have to be perfect. And actually, the trust studies show that actually, even if you let somebody down, but if you repair it, that actually bonds you better than if you're perfectly never let anybody down. It's that repair and that human. And then the intimacy, right, of knowing someone. Like you cannot trust someone if you don't know them. And it's fascinating when I'm working with a new leader. I'll say, walk me through your team. Tell me who they are, what motivate. Like I'll just do a stakeholder map and we'll be talking about the different people they want to influence. And I'll say, well, tell me about Ian. What's she about? Well, I think she's married and, has a few kids. I'm like, what motivates her? Well, I don't know. She's always been fairly I'm like, if you don't know somebody, how do you know how to move the levers of motivation? So the intimacy of knowing someone is where true trust lives. So breaking bread with you, those trust moments that we're building, those human moments, and I always say, I don't make the rules, but you got to know somebody before you can trust them. And if you don't take time to know somebody on a team,
absolutely.
you can never truly trust. I can have a civil relationship, I can have a professional relationship, but I won't know if you have my back until I know how you put your pants on, right? And I know, are you a good human, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even silly things like if you have animals or a dog, I'm like, well, it says to me you're probably a pretty good human. Like there's little things that we need to know about people that build that trust. And so it's a super important thing. And you're right. It's hard to get back when you've broken it. But you start out in a good place. It's yours to lose, right?
Yeah. Well, and the funny part too about conflict is conflict actually breeds intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
If I can have a conversation and we can do conflict together, that builds trust because I know you better. I know what triggers you. I know I can watch you calm down and we can connect. And I always say, the basic human need, no matter if you're 2 or 102, is to be seen and heard. And so if the
Absolutely.
leader can actually, or your teammates can see and hear you authentically, heart to heart, then it builds an energy between you.
And also that reliability of consistency, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
doing a lot of work right now. I just got through working, or I'm still working with a response team at the Centers for Disease Control. And, they were, I told the leader, I said, you've walked into an organization that obviously is going through a huge amount of trauma. Last year, a year ago, they had the shooting on the main campus about a mile away from my home. Like it's just been trauma after trauma after trauma, the government, the layoffs, the other things. And in this particular group, they had 6 leaders. I said, you are a beautiful human being and you're exactly what this team needs right now. But you won't build trust for at least a year, not because of you, but because they have been in survival mode for so long. Only consistency over time. And I just watched them rebuild it. And we're just about to enter our 2nd year. Like it has taken some time. And they've made great strides along the way. They've gone from, 0 to, 6 or 7. I mean, they have more to go, but you just see what's possible when trust is there. And I believe that people are naturally hopeful. They want to believe, right?
Yeah.
And so give them a space and give them a relationship to believe in. I think you can, but you also have to know as a leader, it's your job to scale that team, and that trust is your biggest asset.
It takes a healer to be able to make that happen.
And a stayer too. I think we've got so much going on and turnover, and when you've had I've had some clients, it's like I've had a different boss every year, and hard to get that relationship, and it's like Groundhog's Day of starting over, right? Every year, it's hard to build something. So
absolutely. Well, I want to kind of close this conversation with what's a one takeaway for you, and Jodie, I'll have you go first, and then Ann, and then I'll wrap it up.
A takeaway from our conversation today: what a rich, wonderful conversation. It's very rare you just get to kind of be with a good group of humans to kind of talk about different elements of leadership and coaching and humanness. So I appreciate just a takeaway to spend some time with you today, and I hope your listeners find value in our discussion. I think for me, it's just that reminder of continuing that trust equation to continue to build and know that, that is the heart of humans, that we want to believe, we want to do great things, I think. And just remember that trust is the glue that's going to make that happen. So that's my takeaway to keep. I know it, but it's nice to have it reinforced through our conversation today.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you have enjoyed it. We enjoy it too. That's why we love this format, because that's what we do. Ann, what's your takeaway?
I guess I really like your talk about presence too, and being present with people and knowing them and intuiting what they need and who they are. I think that's really important in leadership, and I deal with a lot of people who are grieving. That's part of my nonprofit. And, there's no plan for grief. There's no designated route to go. So you just have to get in there and relate to them. And, I read a series of books, and there was a book that talked about Hagar and how she was, cast out after she had Isaac because he was not, Sarah's son. And she called God El Roi, the God who sees. He's the one who sees us. And that's what I think some leadership lacks, is being able to see their people and be present with them.
Oh, I love that.
They've got all this agenda that they want to accomplish, but
that's right. We can't do it without really being there. That's right. Oh, I've just enjoyed this conversation. Two beautiful women, and I love our conversation around trust, because that's really what's coming up as leaders talk, and even with the neuroscience, it's just all about your heart and trust and following that. That's the North Star, is following your heart.
And it's the part that connects safety in our brain. Trust makes us feel safe, and our brain functions so beautifully when we feel that psychological safety, that relational safety, that leadership safety. And I'm not talking about safety in the classic sense of, tigers aren't going to eat us anymore, but it's that sense of space that we can get down and do real work when we have that trust here, because we can focus on the things that truly matter, because we have done our work to be present with each other, so we can do great things together. So I love that.
The heart work, and that we're finding now that heart work is connected to our metabolism.
Oh, absolutely.
Fascinating. I mean, I love the blending of the neuroscience, because it confirms
physical, mental, brain. We know it, but now we are getting science and data that says it's not just made up woo-woo stuff. This is real this is real manifestation of how we lead, how we learn, how we love, how we live. So it's great.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Jodie, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. What a pleasure. And I'm going to make you promise you'll come back.
Absolutely. Can't wait to do it. And it was just lovely to meet you. And that's what I love about LinkedIn, just kind of the serendipitous connection on different topics, especially when you're a busy executive and, time is a premium, but just being able to touch people in different parts of the world doing different things. It's just that connection. Connection is so rich. And my life is richer for being with you ladies today. So thank you very much.
And we
Same
feel
here.
the same way. Thank you.
Same here.
And I'm going to sign off. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thanks for coming today. And Jodie, would you hang on while the recording ends? Okay, thanks.
I will.
Bye, y'all.